How cool is that? Well done, Graham, man. It looks like an epic, epic movie at that as well. But right now, back to your feel-good breakfast show. It's the new year, and it's back to school for all primary and secondary school learners. And that's now next week. But ahead of schools reopening, what kind of prep should parents be doing for their children? Now, certified parent coach Laura Markovitz joins us in studio to talk about this very, very important topic. 2018, Laura, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yeah, and Happy New Year for you as well.
And to you.
Yeah, back to school. I'm dealing with that as well. My two boys are heading back to, even though it's not big school. My youngest is going to, or my eldest is going to grade R now. Yeah, so you know, there's a quite a fair amount of anticipation as to what is going to be happening. But now, leading up to the process of the youngsters going back to school, this is what we want to talk about. It can be a very stressful process. I think, you know, what have you identified are some of the major stresses that parents deal with?
Yeah, I think absolutely. It's, you know, it's an exciting time, but it also can raise a lot of pressures.
Yeah.
And I think for parents, there are a lot of things happening. You know, some are sitting there with absolutely bated breath waiting for that school bell to ring after a very long holiday and they're ready for the kids to go back.
Yeah.
Whereas the others are holding on, and some of them really struggle with separation from their kids. We always think, oh, the kids are struggling to separate, but some parents actually struggle to separate from their kids.
Yeah.
And then they often hold a lot of their own worries or their perceived worries about the children. Are they going to cope academically? Are they going to cope socially? Are they going to cope and get involved and participate in extramurals? And then, of course, the financial pressures that school brings.
Yeah.
School outings, the extramurals, the textbooks, all those things that are there besides the school fees. So all of that bundled up can raise quite a few pressures for parents.
Okay, so how do we go about then alleviating some of that pressure and some of that stress? Is there a kind of a checklist that you would suggest that parents kind of try and tick off before the kids go back to school to make it a kind of an easy transition into it? Yeah.
Smoother process. So I think, you know, what's helpful is to think about prepping the parents and children both emotionally and practically. So thinking about the practicalities and then thinking about the emotional elements. So when it comes to the emotional stuff, it's really talking about what's going to happen, and not just the day before school starts, but start now, absolutely. You know, what are you, school starting next week? It's 7 more sleeps till school. For older kids to start talking about what teachers they'd like to get, what teachers they don't want to get, what friends they'd like to have in their class, what friends they would prefer not to have in their class, so that we can start talking about those sort of things so that they are prepared. And I think it's important from an emotional perspective is to remember that it's often a mix of emotions for kids. You know, they're excited about seeing friends sometimes, but they're really nervous about other aspects, especially for the kids just starting school now. It's a whole mix of emotions. I often say there should be a word called nexited. You know, we're nervous and excited at the same time. And I think as parents, for us to not minimize those feelings, we often start going, oh, it's going to be such fun and you're going to be doing this and that, but to actually talk to them about what their worries are, what their concerns are, and they're very real.
Yeah, so basically don't just paint that pretty picture of going back to school.
Bubble. Absolutely.
Talk about everything, the good and the bad.
Absolutely, to think about it, and then through talking about it, they can problem solve together, us as parents, and with the kids to think about, well, how can we deal with the things that you're worried about?
I like that. I like that. Laura, thank you very, very much. You are going to be joining us once again a little bit later on for another segment helping our parents and our children make that easy transition from the holidays to back to school.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Right now, though, let's return to some parenting advice. Now, early on, we spoke about the importance of parents prepping and planning properly for the new school year, and we're continuing that conversation right now with certified parent coach Laura Markovitz. Laura, lucky to have you. Yes, so essentially we spoke about it. It's all about good planning to help alleviate stress and help make that process easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a big transition going from holidays back into school.
And back to work
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
It's a big
exactly.
transition.
So, you know, it's important that we think about it and try to do it as consciously as we can to try and alleviate some of the stresses that come with big transitions. So what we spoke about earlier was being sure that we're cognizant of the emotional elements for kids. But then I think we also need to think of the practicalities. So certain things that we can really be prepping for, like sleep. Sleep for us and for the kids. You know, holidays are often late nights and then sleeping late in the mornings if we're lucky. And so starting to get back into a routine where kids are going to sleep a little bit earlier, where we're getting enough sleep, because let's not kid, it's a lot easier to deal with transitions if we have the energy to deal with it. So sleep's quite important. And then, of course, getting organized. You know, doing things absolutely last minute and packing school lunches and school bags and extramural stuff and trying to find stationery doesn't generally lend itself to a calm transition for the kids or for us. So trying to think through those things so that we can be a little bit organized, and also obviously getting our kids involved. So from as early as possible, helping them help themselves so that they are involved in packing their stuff and knowing what needs to be there. And then also remembering the boundaries. So, you know, often we think, okay, well, I'll just leave it to the school to sort them out and deal with discipline. To remember to make sure that the kids are having healthy boundaries set for them before they go back to school. And hopefully that's been maintained during the holidays as well. So they're not just thrown in the deep end. And then, of course, fun and laughter and connecting and chatting to them, and, you know, as we said earlier, talking to them about what's going to happen, how they're feeling about it, what they're worried about, what they're excited about, so that they feel prepared.
I think that part that you mentioned is probably for me one of the most important aspects, because I think a lot of time, you know, with kids not wanting maybe to go back to school, or there's a bit of a fear of going to school, you know, there's anxiety. You know, I think parents try to paint this beautiful picture. No, it's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. You're going to have a great class, great teacher. But, you know, if you take a look at the other end of it, if you have that conversation, both good, both bad, the conversation needs to happen to make sure that you understand where your child is at, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I mean, that's so important, exactly that. You know, we don't want to just paint and set them up for this happy bubble, and then they've got to deal with the real disappointment, and they don't have their best friend in the class, and they don't have the teacher that they wanted. Rather, to be talking about it before so that they're prepared for it. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to still be unhappy if that situation transpires.
But it'll be easier.
But they're prepared for it, and they're able to talk about it.
And you know, exactly. Laura, thank you very, very much for joining us this morning, and all the best for your 2018 as well. Looking forward to connect with you as well, all those parenting issues that we might come across. And there we have it. I do hope that you found some good advice and good tips, and I do hope that you have a beautiful transition going from holiday to school, and for you working wise as well. Right now, let's get some music. Cara Fru's in the house.